Any type of cartilage is made up of two components: extracellular matrix and cells. Extracellular matrix is made up of fibrillar component and interfibrillar component. Fibrillar component is the ground substance. It is formed by proteins. And interfibrillar component is formed by proteoglycans and glycosaminoglycans. The proteins that are primarily present: type 1, 2 and 3 collagen. Proteoglycans and glycosaminoglycans. Proteoglycans is the water and protein component, and glycosaminoglycans, depending upon the type of cartilage, whether it is bone, ligament or tendon, this will differ. Then cells, the basic cell that is present is fibroblast, which matures into fibrocyte. Again, depending upon the type of cartilage, the cell will be called as follows. So if it is bone, then the cell will be known as osteoblast. If it is a cartilage, then the cell will be known as chondroblast. And if it is a tendon, then it is known as tendoblast, and so on. The important thing that you need to understand over here is the interfibrillar part of the extracellular matrix: proteoglycan and glycosaminoglycan. In osteoarthritis, the primary structure that is affected is the articular cartilage. The type of cartilage present is hyaline cartilage. Now we'll understand how this cartilage helps. Hyaline cartilage has got a high composition of proteoglycan and glycosaminoglycan. Now what do these two things do? How do these two structures help? So as discussed, this is the extracellular matrix of the cartilage, and the extracellular matrix is made up of proteins, that is the fibrillar component, and interfibrillar component, which is proteoglycan and glycosaminoglycan. So this strand that you can see is the fibrous part. This is the protein part, collagen. Then these strands that you can see long, these are the proteoglycans, and this is glycosaminoglycan. So this is proteoglycan and these are glycosaminoglycan. Now what happens whenever, so this is the joint, and here we have the articular cartilage surrounding the joint surface. Now whenever the joint is loaded, what happens? This structure attracts water molecules. This is hydrophilic, so based on osmotic differences, water gets inside this structure. This structure gets swollen. So this entire part now swells. Now when this is going to swell, it is going to create stress on the surrounding collagen strands. So this is one strand, these are the other strands, and this is the proteoglycan and glycosaminoglycan component. Now when this swells, it is going to create stress on the surrounding collagen strands. It is going to create stress on the surrounding collagen strands, and these collagen strands will be stretched. That is the reason why these collagen strands will undergo tensile stress. There are different types of forces. One of them is tensile stress. When two forces are being applied along the same line in opposite direction, creating a pulling force, then that force is known as tensile force. And when two forces are acting towards each other along the same line, that is known as compressive force. So here, when because of water this molecule swells, it is going to create a tensile stress on this collagen strand. Now when this collagen strand undergoes, when this collagen strand experiences the tensile stress, it is going to try to resist it, and that will happen by some deformation taking place in this strand. So this collagen strand will undergo deformation in order to resist this tensile stress, and this deformation will create stiffness within these strands. So these strands will now become stiffer, and this stiffness is going to help in redistributing the joint load. When these strands get stiffer, that helps in redistributing the compressive forces that are being placed on the joint. By the stress strain curve, so this is the stress strain curve, and the slope of this curve, the slope of this curve gives stiffness. So whenever a particular stress is being applied, that object undergoes certain strain. So similarly over here, the collagen strand, when stress is being applied to it, it undergoes certain strain, and the slope of this curve gives us stiffness. So depending upon the material, depending upon the type of object, certain objects will have more stiffness and certain materials will have lesser stiffness. So the collagen strand will exhibit certain stiffness, and that stiffness will help in resisting the joint load. So this is what happens at the articular cartilage. This is what happens at the cartilage level. And that is how hyaline cartilage is helpful in redistributing the compressive forces on the joint. Now, if this is the joint, as the articular cartilage has degenerated, here we have the articular cartilage. Now, if this cartilage is degenerated, the underlying bones will be exposed. There is no cartilage covering the joint surface. So now the forces that were being taken up by the articular cartilage will have to be borne by the bone. In response to these extra forces, which is usually not taken by these bone surface, the joint will undergo certain adaptations, and that process is known as joint remodeling. Joint remodeling is a process where the bones undergo certain adaptations to take up the extra force. Now the cartilage is not there. There is no redistribution of forces that is taking place. All the compressive load is coming on the joint surface. So now what are the adaptations that the joint surface undergoes? First is formation of osteophytes. Now how does this help? Osteophytes increase the surface area, and by the formula, joint stress is equal to force upon area. As area increases, the joint stress decreases. So that is one way by which the force is dissipated. Next, there is deposition of extra bone beneath the joint surface. Again, this is to help redistribute the extra forces, and this is known as subchondral sclerosis. You will see both of these features on an X-ray, subchondral sclerosis and osteophytes. So subchondral sclerosis is that white line immediately below the joint surface, and osteophytes are the spikes that you will see along the joint surface, along the joint line. And because of this, now the articular cartilage is degenerated, the joint space will reduce. There is deposition of extra bone, at the same time articular cartilage is degenerated. That leads to a decrease in the joint space.